Let's go Detroit Lions here. Lions kick things off with Ohio State defensive tackle Tyleik Williams in the first. They come back with Tate Ratledge, Georgia guard, in the second round. They make a power move. They give up, was it 2 threes to go get Isaac TeSlaa? They went and got Isaac TeSlaa, the wide receiver out of Arkansas, with the 6th pick of the 3rd round. We'll talk about him in a minute. And then on day 3, guard Miles Frazier from LSU, Ahmed Hassanein from Boise State. I know one of your favorite picks. We'll have plenty of stories about that and a couple Georgia players. They are 42.9% Georgia, by the way, this draft. Dan Jackson, the safety, Dominic Lovett, the wide receiver from Georgia. What were your thoughts on the Lions haul here in the draft?
Yeah, an interesting draft. So a lot of it is, one thing I found when we were doing all the live stuff, right, and you're going through the pick by pick, blah, 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 is it was difficult. I think it's difficult now to keep track of like the trades and what exactly that those net out as. It used to be really easy because teams would just like trade a pick to move up to X spot. But now everybody has realized that doing that is bad. You lose picks. You want the picks. So everyone is trying to make the math work by like swapping picks back and forth. Right. And it makes netting it in your head on the fly extremely difficult, at least for me. So
by the way,
I tended to sort of forget about a lot of the picks that were, or the trade compensation that was made, and just focus on who was drafted.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did. Is there like a source of truth with all draft trades somewhere? I haven't seen that accumulated anywhere. I would love to go back and look at all of them side by side. But yeah, it's very tough to keep track, especially starting in the 2nd round, right? There are picks flying around all over the place.
Yeah. And like I said, it's harder now that teams are specifically trying to make the math balance out by sending picks back and forth and keep the same number of draft picks, but change the value effectively they're given. So I sort of tended to focus on just the players and lose sight of what was being traded where in order to get those players. And that obviously affects the value, because you're not just drafting a guy at X spot. You're giving up potentially more value than that to go and get that guy. And that's where, so things like Arif's data factors that in, right? It factors in the trades that you gave up, effectively the draft position value that you gave up in order to get these guys. Long way around to say Arif's data thinks this is the least valuable draft, or the least valuable that lost the most value relative to the players they brought in the entire draft.
That's because TeSlaa,
because of the trades required to get a guy like Isaac TeSlaa.
Sorry. They moved up 32 spots from 102 to 70 to get him. They gave up that pick 102, and that's a 3rd rounder. And then they gave up both of their 3rd round picks in next year's draft.
Right.
So they had 2 threes next year and gave up both to get him. This reminds me of the Braden Fisk one, right? Braden Fisk, where the Rams moved up 12 spots, 15 spots. It wasn't massive, and gave up an entire 2nd round pick next year without really there may have been a pick swap, but it was low. That's a massive investment in TeSlaa, who's a fun player.
It is. And it was such a massive investment. So I like picks like this, not because I like picks like this from a selfish point of view, because it's such an amount to give up that it makes me go, obviously they really value him. Let's go and watch him again. Because, we're watching a ton of players. Sometimes you don't give a guy a fair crack, or you just don't see it the first time around. So I'm like, let's go and watch some Isaac TeSlaa to see what we were missing. Because he's an interesting player, even independent of that. He was a freaky athlete at the combine. Like, he's like a 95th percentile athlete. And that kind of surprised people first and foremost. Like, I don't think anyone saw that coming, as one of the 5 best athletes in this draft class is going to be Isaac TeSlaa. I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card, and yet that's what it was. So then you go back and watch the tape, and you're like, dude, I kind of see it. Like, he is big and fast, and it has some freaky catches on his tape. Has terrible quarterback play as well, which is a big part of the relative lack of production. But I mean, it's a lot to give up for him. I'm not saying it's a good pick, but this is one where it wouldn't shock me if like Brad Holmes ends up being right again, and we all have to go, we're not worthy.
It's really, I had the same reaction, Sam, because I went back and watched him again, and it was like, all right, speed plays. They didn't target him much. He averaged 19 yards per catch, but he's 6'3", runs a low 4.4. Impressive jumps, impressive shuttle. Everything about him is smooth, catches the ball, didn't drop a pass last year, catches the ball in traffic, just didn't have a lot of volume. Andrew Armstrong who's slower, a little bit more methodical. I don't know where he ended up signing as a UDFA. Armstrong was far more productive in that Arkansas offense. And a lot of TeSlaa's, schemed up and a lot of like vertical stuff from the slot. But then I'm picturing him in this Lions offense in the number of times where they use Jamison Williams and they've used Khalif Raymond as just a pure stretch the field deep threat through the years. And I'm thinking this guy with his size and his speed can definitely fill that role for the Lions.
Miami, Andrew Armstrong signed, just FYI.
That's right.
You remember when PFF first created the sort of game athleticism score that they have, and one of its first kind of hits was Puka Nacua, who again didn't look like an amazing athlete, and then the game athleticism score, the tracking data, essentially said, hey, by the way, this guy was absolutely cooking when he was on the field. He was an elite athlete on the field that just didn't necessarily show itself on tape. So I was curious with TeSlaa and went back and looked what his game athleticism score was, and it's 95th percentile last year. It's like off the charts good as well. So another guy who the tracking data, the on-field performance may actually be every bit as athletic as the crazy workout suggests it was.
And he has with some negated catches in here, 62 catches over the last 2 years.
Right.
So I know we're starting on the round 3 pick, but it was the most interesting move that the Lions made, because they said, take our threes we have 2 threes next year. Take them. We want this guy. And now it's like, oh, did Brad do it again? Maybe, because TeSlaa is a fascinating prospect. He was a late invite as well to the Senior Bowl when someone left or there was an injury, whatever it was, he came to the Senior Bowl. So it wasn't like he was a complete sleeper. Like the league knew about him, but the Lions, like he was expected to go maybe day 3. And the Lions said, no, we need to have him with pick 70 overall early in the 3rd round.
Well, not just we need to have him, but we need to give up a lot to get him now. Like that's the thing that really jumps out.
TeSlaa. All right. Tyleik Williams was the first pick for the Lions. He was the 5th defensive tackle off the board. I do think it was a strong class, but also a trend in the NFL as they're getting paid a ton of money. Fascinating addition to already having Alim McNeill and DJ Reader, another huge body. Of all the 5 defensive tackles that went in the first, I think he's the worst pass rusher, but maybe the best pure run defender, or certainly the best pure hold the point nose tackle. Yeah. He is a disruptor and just another big body added to this Detroit defensive line. So those first 2 picks, right? D tackle there, and then guard Tate Ratledge with the second one, just shoring up the trenches on both sides of the ball for the Lions. Hey guys, just taking a quick break to tell you, hey, just over 50% of you are still unsubscribed to Check the Mic. It helps the channel. It helps to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows. So if you have a chance, hit the subscribe button right now.
Yeah, sometimes drafts are characterized by what they didn't get or what they passed up all the way along the draft. And everyone had been saying, look, the Lions have got to be getting an edge rusher in the first round, or somewhere at the top of the draft. And they ended up passing on edge rusher all the way down to Hassanein in the 6th round. And even he is only a nominal edge rusher as opposed to a true, edge pass rushing presence. But Tyleik Williams, just in a vacuum, makes a lot of sense for this defense. There's a degree of redundancy with him and DJ Reader, or, they already have Reader. They've got Alim McNeill. They've got Levi Onwuzurike they brought back. It's not like they're weak up front, but DJ Reader is only there for another year. He's also got a pretty extensive injury history. Tyleik Williams come in. Number one, there's space for 4 guys in a defensive tackle rotation for an elite team like Detroit, right? A team that wants to go to the Super Bowl. Having 4 guys that cause problems in the middle is not a problem. Number 2, it's a long-term play, right? It's the DJ Reader succession plan on top of that. And yeah, like Williams, I think is a really good underrated player. He reminded me a bit of Pat Williams, the old Minnesota Vikings, half of the Williams wall. Just this absolutely powerful, like the strength that he has is nuts. Pat Williams had that as well. And Tyleik, a lot of players can play the run by disrupting and penetrating into the backfield and sort of attacking gaps. A lot of guys can just occupy space and hold the point as a 2-gap guy. Not many people can just do it by pure strength, by just being stronger than the offensive lineman in front of him and like rocking that guy backwards on contact and resetting the line of scrimmage. Williams does that consistently. It's kind of amazing to watch.
Yeah, I think he's He's a really good player. I thought coming into the season he would have been a fringe first round player. Always felt like he could have dominated a little bit more. I think he took a step in that right direction. If you go back to 2023 when they played Notre Dame, Joe Alt's trying to down block him and he's just tossing Joe Alt aside. Like he's got some really freakish, impressive plays in there. So I think there's even more potential in there with Tyleik. I still wonder if he's ever a good pass rusher. But right. I mean, if you tell him, hey, just go push the pocket and let Aiden Hutchinson get around the edge, maybe there is something there. And one of the questions we had after day 2, they passed up some good edge rushers, whether it was a Princely as a designated pass rusher, Nick Scorton, Donovan Ezaraku. They passed it. That's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on. I know they got Hassanein later, but we thought even doubling up at edge, trying to solve that spot opposite Aiden Hutchinson, and they went differently with Tyleik in the middle. And then Ratledge, who I really liked. He goes at 57 overall in the second round. I think he can move people in the run game. Excellent pass protector. He has a mullet as well. And always felt like, look at this thing.
Look at
that.
Look at it.
I mean, you just put a line, when you're watching him run at the combine and you're just like, Dan, get off the field. Campbell, you can't take him now. You can't take him home with you now, Dan. Dan got a lot of his favorite players in this draft. I could tell. So Ratledge felt destined to be a Lion. I thought he would have been a good fit for the Bengals, who had that guard need in the second round. Someone on Twitter joked because I fired a whole bunch of mock drafts out over the last few weeks for various teams. They're like, you pick Ratledge for every team. I said, yes, I think that's where the value is, the guard drop off. So I think it was a good fit there. He comes in, probably competes right away with Christian Mahogany and gives you some insurance for Glasgow on the other side. So,
and they doubled up. They brought Miles Frazier in later, who can, compete at guard as well. At guard, I think, was a potential weakness, right? Mahogany is an unknown quantity in relative terms on the right side. Graham Glasgow is maybe in the weakest part of that offensive line anyway, is getting older and, could be replaced at some point at the left guard spot. So bringing in competition for one or both of those spots is smart.
Frazier's from LSU, really good pass blocking profile at guard, better pass blocker than a run blocker. Also had one of the better pass blocking grades at the Senior Bowl. So 2 guards to fit. I think they had a need there, and at worst they have depth, right? So I think that's great. We talked about TeSlaa in the third, and then Hassanein and his fun story from Boise State, round 6, pick 196, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the most amazing stories in this draft. He ends up becoming the first Egyptian to be drafted, to be in the NFL. He was like a teenage CrossFit champion in Egypt, and then eventually his family sort of got him over here. Basically took up football to try and, create a better life, create a success for himself. And that was like late in his high school career, goes to Boise State, and his intensity, his joy for it, his motivation for it it's phenomenal to watch. Like, watch him at the combine. He's like, hyping up the coaches before the drills. He's like running that figure 8, drill where you drop the towel and pick it up again. And he's like, hyping up the coach before they run it. They're both barking at each other before the drill starts. Dan Campbell's going to love this guy. Like, he is just a ball of high motor intensity, like joy to be playing football. That guy, he's going to absolutely love this guy. He's going to be like pointing to him in meeting rooms, having speeches, lined up about him for everybody else on the team. He's going to find a way of making use of him. I don't know that he solves their kind of lack of pass rush opposite Aiden Hutchinson, but I think he'll be a contributor for this team.
Yeah, that's the only thing with this draft, and I'm a don't draft for needs guy, right? I'm not saying you should have gone in looking for edge rushers. I thought in this draft, though, there was great opportunities there. So this will be a fun one that we'll see how it plays out. I also think the Lions might be in the trade market for edge rushers, right? There'll be some expendable edge rushers that are worth bringing in the same way they brought in Zadarius Smith, and I think they can continue to add to that defensive line. So good overall from the Lions. Wasn't one of my absolute favorites, but probably I liked all the drafts, Sam.
I thought it was a good draft. Like I said, it's interesting because anything that factors in value of the picks and value expended will not like this draft very much, because they gave up a lot to go get a guy like TeSlaa. But again, it wouldn't shock me if he ended up becoming the sort of one of those surprise receiver picks that ends up dramatically outperforming that draft position. Tyleik, Williams, Tate, Ratledge, they're unexciting picks, but I think they're good additions and will make an impact. And then you got to love just the story and the fit culture-wise with Hassanein going to Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes' Detroit team. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.